Basically, the Europeans built about 64 forts and castles in West Africa. Out of that number, Ghana had over 40 of them, all because of our gold. But some of the forts are no more. We now have about 19 forts and 3 castles existed. First castle built in Ghana is the one in Elmina, St. George's Castle, built by the Portuguese in the year 1482. 1482, being the oldest, the largest, the biggest castle in the country, oldest European structure in entire West Africa. Elmina Castle is about 539 years old. Second castle is in Accra, Christiansborg, Osu, built by the Danes, Denmark, 1662. This is the youngest, the third, the last castle, Cape Coast Castle, built by the British, this English castle. They started building the castle around 1664, about 357 years old. Very old, but the structure is still strong. Surprisingly, the original structure, like in here, has no cement, no annual rods. Any cement mortar you see here is for recent restoration works. They used building materials, and I trust you saw some of the samples in the Building History Museum. And they used Africans to construct, meaning Africans we built our own dungeons. Transatlantic slave trade, or the triangular trade. The Europeans came to West Africa here with several reasons in mind. They came to West Africa to search for minerals like gold, spread Christianity, search for an alternative route to India, to circumvent the Arabs who came to Africa first. But you know, the Arabs mainly settled at the northern part of Africa, and they were there fast spreading Islam, taking minerals as well as slaves via the Sahara Desert, sold them in Asian markets in what they called trans-Saharan slave trade. The Europeans wanted to break the monopoly by finding the source of these minerals themselves, so they started to explore. Led by the Portuguese, start from Ceuta, Senegambia. 1471, they got to Elmina. They built the castles indicated 1482. And same Portuguese got to the Americas. And when they got there, they saw fertile land, good for agriculture. So they started growing plantations, large-scale farms. Labor became a problem because they were using the natives of America, but they were not strong. They were dying of tropical diseases. And as they were here, they knew the potentials in Africans, very strong, able to withstand tropical diseases. They said, no, Africans, could work better than those who've engaged. So they introduced transatlantic slave trade. And the Europeans started getting our ancestors by raiding and kidnapping. For instance, they could set a village on fire. And as the people were running for their lives, they kidnapped the youth. You could be working on your farm with your children. You look back and they are kidnapped away. Sometimes they deceive some of our people. For instance, let's go to our home countries. We will give you better lives. They ended up working for them. Let's go inside our ships and have fun. The locals understood, free-mindedly, packed their drums and other playing instruments, went to them, and as they were enjoying, they gave them a lot of alcoholic beverages, chained and shackled them, and the time they realized they were on the high seas. There were some instances where some Africans, some chiefs, traditional rulers, prominent personalities, brought some people like they are prisoners of war, evildoers in communities, and sold to the Europeans. And wherever they got these people, they marched them on footpath. They walked in chains and shackles. Some of them died on the way. Because imagine walking from Kumasi to Cape Coast, over 200 kilometers. Tamale is over 400. Others came from present day like Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and others, because Gold Coast became the major transit point for a lot of the enslaved Africans. Those who survived these long journeys, in this castle, when they arrived, they took them upstairs into a hall called Palaver Hall. European doctors in the hall examined the captives to determine their strength after they were exchanged for gunpowder, mirror, tobacco, fabrics, rum, caps, browswares, and others according to their strength. And after the auction, They brought them to the courtyard and burnt marks on them. They were branded for easy identification before they were pushed into the dungeons. They stayed in here for a few days to about 3 months, waiting for shipment. When the ships came, they were loaded, sent them to North America, South America, the Caribbean, like Brazil, US of A, Suriname, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Antigua and others to work on plantations. Few were sent to Europe to do construction works. Men here, female dungeons down there. Right above the male dungeon, the room up with 3 windows facing you was a chapel. Can you imagine? Church above a slave dungeon. So Monday through to Saturday, the British bought captives, held them in dungeons. Sundays, they had church services above them. That is why in Ghana, some people say the ship that brought Bible took captives away. And first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta, once said, when the missionaries arrived, Africans had land, they had Bible. They taught us how to pray with our eyes closed. When we open our eyes, they had land, we had Bible. Any question? Those who came late, you're welcome. Let's see the male dungeon. It looks so what your steps. Please wear your mask. Please wear your mask. It's up last night. See how dark the room is around this time, and imagine how dark it will be around 7, 8 p.m. And the British provided our ancestors with no artificial light, but rather created these holes to serve as sources of light and ventilation. And because the dungeon is dark, some of them lost their sight, some partial, some full, because in the darkness for about 3 months, later went out, the sun rays affected the eyes of some of the captives. There are 5 compartments, 5 chambers in the dungeon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the first chamber. Each of one chamber like this had about 200 men. The British kept 200 of our male ancestors in here for about 3 months. They fired from this chamber to the last one, about 1,000 men. This very one was called strong chamber for those who were physically, mentally strong. Because they were strong, they chained them. They chained them, putting the chains in pistols on the wall. Long chains normally by the ankles. And again, long them up would give them the metal door here. There were many, sometimes, if not always, the dungeon became very warm because of body temperature. And the dungeon was warm until they were screaming. They poured water on them, sometimes from these holes, to cool down the temperature a little bit. It is estimated that 30% died only in the dungeons because communicable diseases spread very fast. Once in a while, they brought in some of the male domestic captives, packed the dead bodies in bags, put the bodies on canoes, paddled to some meters, then dumped the bodies into the sea. They added the balls so that the bodies would settle. So sometimes the living struggled with the dead bodies here. And there were several diseases here. Look at this now. I just sit or lie by him. And I can see, I can feel he's not feeling more because he moves. But I'm helpless. If the movement ceases, touch the body, and the body is cold, meaning he's dead. And if what killed him was a communicable disease, in a few days I'll catch it. When I die, the person behind me, beside me will also die. And as I indicated, several diseases because they were doing everything. I mean everything to themselves independent. They defecated here, urinated, vomited. They ate after they slept here. So they were in their mess. With the unkempt hair, rotten or decayed teeth, smelling bodies, some of them had sores or wounds on them. So imagine the stool, the flies, the mosquitoes, the pain, the hunger here. No cleaning. Rainwater comes in even now when it rains, normally from the holes, and the water was supposed to flush out feces, urine, vomit, blood, food particles, and many others to the trenches down into the sea. But the channels here, the trenches choked, covered. It's that feces, urine, vomit, blood, mustard soil covered the floor like a carpet. But this chamber is excavated. That is why the trenches, the bricks are seen clearly. Archaeologists led by one late Professor Akwanda came from University of Ghana Archaeology Department and excavated this chamber. Out of that excavation, they had chains, shackles, ropes, branded iron they used on our ancestors. And we have all these in our main museum. But unfortunately, our main museum is temporarily closed because we are doing some maintenance works in there. They gave them food. They were fed, normally twice a day. But little food just to keep them alive. Most of the times, the domestic captives were bringing food for those in the dungeons, the commercial ones. But sometimes when those were hungry and the food was not coming, they became very aggressive, very angry. Because they say a hungry man is always an angry man. So to avoid attacks, they did not come in with the food. Rather, they dropped food from both sides down here. Those who were interested struggled for the food in the feces, in the urine, in the vomit. And they were doing similar thing on the ships. When they were going to the New World, they were passing food from the middle of the ships down for the captives. That is why the journey from here to the Americas was called the Middle Passage. The Middle Passage. You know, some couldn't struggle for food in feces, in vomit, refused to eat. The British took those people out, first opened their jaws with their instruments, and pushed food in. They forced further, so that at least they will eat something to keep them alive. The other four chambers are excavated. So after here, we shall be working on feces, urine, vomit, and all that. Any questions before we do that? Death chamber.
Please, hello. I will entreat everybody to do the mass. It's compulsory. Already is the order. Thank you.
We are in the third chamber, the middle of the Neurology. As I just indicated, we are now standing or working on this carpet of feces, urine, vomit, and all that. But see where I'm standing. It's a little bit higher than where you are. Heat. And this part of the chamber is heated because of this problem. Because as I just indicated, sometimes food came through this holes. So this is mainly leftover food with feces, urine, vomit, and all that. And this food passage, this hole, was again used as a spy hole. Some of the spies were commanded to stand up and listen. to whatever going on down here. When those who were planning to attack or escape, they reported to the British and they punished them accordingly. And the hole is covered, this hole is covered in front of the church above this dungeon. In fact, I don't understand some of the Europeans myself. Why they had their churches above slave dungeons. In the Elmina Castle, the Dutch people from the Netherlands or Holland established their reformed church on top of a female slave dungeon. In this castle, the British also built their Anglican church right above this male dungeon. So the Europeans in the churches worshiping, singing praises, preaching the word of God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Thou shalt not kill. Captives were also in the dungeons, right beneath them, suffering, crying, dying. So there's heaven and hell. Then ironically, heaven up there, hell down here. The Europeans created heaven for themselves and created hell for Africans. Gospel. SPG Church. First Church of England in the country. Church of England is now Anglican. And Anglican churches are all over Ghana. Methodist Church Ghana started from this courtyard. Catholic started from Elmina Castle. The church now, children's library. So school children come to the library to read. And the church sits on the male dungeon. The church is on top of the male dungeon. This is the spy who we just saw from the middle of the male dungeon. You remember? That's indicated sometimes they dropped food through this one for the male captive. So look at this scenario. A reverend minister like Philip Kwaku was passing for a service, had something like leftover bread. He could just drop it down through this hole, and the captives in the dungeons will struggle for it. After this, same man will pass, enter the church, sing praises like Amazing Grace, which was originally composed by John Newton. And John Newton was once a slave ship captain. Later, he repented and became a reverend minister. And as they were singing Amazing Grace in here, they were still protecting their business in the dungeons. I mean, someone stood there and listened to whatever going on in the dungeon. When they were planning to attack or escape, they reported to the British and they punished them. Probably, captives down in the dungeons heard the British in the church singing, but they couldn't come out to join them worship, because as the Bible says, if you're in hell, there's no way you could go to heaven. As I said earlier, ironically, heaven up here, hell down there. Let's for the British. So you're running away. I'm standing on one, but this one is unmarked, because when the courtyard was excavated, only 4 graves had marks, only for identified. 1 black grave, 3 European graves. The black man buried here, Reverend Philip Kwaku P.K., a native of Cape Coast, born to a father who was doing buying and selling of Africans. The father of Philip was a middleman. Due to that relationship the father had with the British, the church awarded the son, Philip, scholarship to study in Britain when he was 11. He attended Oxford University, ordained, became first black person to be ordained a priest of the Anglican Church. Philip came back, worked with them for 50 years as a teacher and a reverend minister in the church and the school. He died 17th October 1816. He was 75. Slave trade was abolished in this castle 1833, meaning he came or even died before slave trade was abolished. So Philip was preaching the gospel after this. Africans were dying in the dungeons. And every 17th October, the Anglican people celebrate him. They come here, surround the grave, say a prayer, lay wreath and flowers on the grave in his memory. So in a few days, they'll be here for the ceremony. 3 Igbo graves, 3 Agrofo graves, 3 African graves. First one here for a soldier, one of the British Army officers with very interesting name. The name C.B. Whitehead. C.B. Whitehead, a lawyer by profession who joined the military. Died in the castle July 1812. He was 38 and we don't know what killed him. Letitia Elizabeth, London. The name alone should tell where she came from. George MacLean. Letitia was the wife of Captain George McLean. So Miss London, not going from London to Good Coast, just to pay George a visit. But Letitia died only 2 months after her arrival. Rumors, gossips had it that malaria killed her. And this was when she came. George, the husband, was having an extramarital affair with an African mistress called Miss Ellen Bannerman from Accra, Osu. When Letitia heard that, she poisoned herself or committed suicide. And this was the African mistress, Miss Bannerman, posed a servant, came to the castle. In a way of serving Letitia, she poisoned her. So to date, we don't know what actually killed Letitia. Whether it was parasite, homicide, or suicide. She died in 1838. She was only 36. George McLean here, I think most of us remember. George McLean came around 1830 as administrator. But it's popular in our colonial history because he designed a bond. When in Ghana, the bond the bond which paid the establishment of British colony of 100 years. He designed the bond and paid. With 8 Ghanaian chiefs, Fanti chiefs, signed the bond on 6 March 1844. Gold Coast, now Ghana, became a colony of the British. So see, the British were our slave masters, became our colonial masters. Ghana is still a member of the British Commonwealth. Confirmed malaria parasite killed George McLean. 1847, he was 46. So see, the black man was 75. The Europeans, 38, 36, 46. Malaria. Any question about malaria? Then it is time for church service. Let's go to church and sing some praise.